All right, so our session is built for impact, lessons from the super clinics leading the way. And we, in this case, define super clinics as anyone who is performing anywhere from 18,000 to upwards of 30,000 spay neuter surgeries a year. And so without further ado, I want to introduce you to your moderator for today is Will Zweigart. Will is a former advertising executive turned nonprofit leader with a deep passion for solving the overcrowded animal shelter crisis in New York City and beyond. He founded Flatbush Cats in 2018 as a TNR and rescue volunteer, but soon realized we cannot rescue or adopt our way out of this crisis. In 2023, Flatbush Cats opened their first nonprofit vet clinic called Flatbush Vet, which provides affordable, high-volume spay, neuter, and wellness care to pet owners and rescuers who could not otherwise afford to see a vet. Thank you, Will, for being here. All right, and getting into our panelists, we have Jennifer Barker. Jennifer is the Chief Executive Officer of Every Pet, newly renamed, formerly known as First Coast No More Homeless Pets. So Every Pet is definitely easier to say, where she leads one of the nation's largest safety net veterinary programs dedicated to ending pet homelessness and making vet care accessible to all. With a background in pre-vet medicine and business development from the University of New Hampshire, Jennifer has built a career spanning hands-on vet work, hospital management, and nonprofit leadership. She has managed general practice, emergency, and specialty referral hospitals, as well as large-scale nonprofit clinics treating tens of thousands of pets each year. Since joining Every Pet in 2014, Jennifer has overseen significant organizational growth, including the design and opening of a second full-service vet hospital. Jennifer is passionate about the human-animal bond and committed to breaking down financial barriers that prevent families from caring for their pets. Beyond her professional work, she has trained miniature horses for therapy programs, volunteered with equine rescue farms, and supported one of Massachusetts' oldest zoos. Compassionate results-driven leader, Jennifer continues to champion innovative programs that save lives, keep pets in loving homes, and strengthen the bond between people and animals. And Every Pet performs 21,000 spay neuter surgeries annually. So thank you so much, Jennifer. All right, and then we have Jacob Cardy. Jacob is the interim executive director of the Spay Neuter Network and has served as the marketing and communications director for more than 10 years. In his tenure, Jacob has helped bring the mission to hundreds of thousands of families and their pets, helping grow the organization to 4 locations and more than 30,000 surgeries annually. Welcome, Jacob. And Kevin, we have Kevin Moore with People for Animals. Since 2011, People for Animals and Kevin has stepped into the role of executive director in January. He's been with People for Animals since 2011. Executive director since January. Before joining the organization, he worked in New Jersey politics, where he successfully championed legislation establishing the Cat and Dog Spay Neuter Fund and allowing veterinarians to earn continuing ed credits for providing free care. People for Animals performs 23,000 or over 23,000 spay neuter surgeries annually. And we have Karn. Karn is well known amongst LA's animal welfare community, so much so that her name has become widely associated with anything related to spay neuter and community or homeless cats. Karn Meyer's prior corporate level experience in international business and the entertainment industry provided her with the ideal skill set to serve as Fix Nation's executive director and chief financial officer. After becoming aware of the plight of homeless cats while working on the set of Titanic, that little old movie, Karn was inspired to take action and start Catnippers with her late husband, Mark Dodge, in 1999. While this bi-monthly MASH-style all-volunteer clinic was a great success, the couple knew that permanent brick-and-mortar facility was the only way to make a lasting impact in the skyrocketing population of community cats in Los Angeles. In 2007, Karn and Mark launched a new 501c3, Fix Nation, the first full-time spay-neuter facility of its kind in LA. The clinic provides comprehensive TNR support for local residents and rescue organizations, including free spay-neuter services for community cats, loaner traps and free TNR training, affordable care and companion cats, and partnerships to facilitate adoptions. Known for its highly efficient vet techs and top-notch vets, Fix Nation is capable of fixing 100 plus cats a day with protocols and procedures that are now considered the gold standard for clinics with a similar compassionate mission. Over the past 25 years, Fix Nation programs have established an incredible and truly unsurpassed legacy under Karn's watch and Mark's. The organization has sterilized more than 280,000 cats, and Fix Nation performs over 18,000 surgeries annually. So, oh my gosh, you all are impressive. All right. So that's it from me. Thank you all panelists. Thank you, Will, for moderating this conversation. All right, I'll leave it over to you.
Thank you. Super excited to jump in and learn from you all. We're going to talk a lot about how you're sustaining these impressive operations, but I'd love to start with just how did you get to the current number that you're doing right now in terms of talk a little bit about what setup you have to be able to perform that high volume on an annual basis. So you could talk about schedules, teams, locations, whatever you think are kind of the core building blocks of getting to there. And Jennifer, we'll start with you if that's okay.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. Yes, so here at Every Pet, formerly First Coast No More Homeless Pets, we are located in Jacksonville, Florida. And we do have two locations, but we have one location dedicated to high volume, high quality spay and neuter services. And we actually underwent a major renovation this past year. We're nearly complete. So it was an interesting experience being fully operational during a major construction. But we have been afforded the opportunity to expand our space. So we're on track to increase our capacity to about 25,000 spay and neuter procedures this year out of that single location. We perform low cost and no cost surgeries for dogs and cats. The high majority of the surgeries are cat related. However, we've built our programs. We started with community cat programs like a lot of us have, and those have just grown exponentially over the years. We're able to achieve the volume in part because the demand is just so extreme. It's a need everywhere, not only in our local community, and Jacksonville is quite large with over 1 million population, but there's a lot of rural communities who lack access. So we have people that are driving an hour or more to access our services, even for community cats, which is wonderful. So, when we first started our programs, of course, overnight, we weren't just doing 20,000 procedures, and there is a lot of productivity buildup. It certainly takes a team to be able to accomplish all of this. And so, over the years, we've had the opportunity to hire more surgeons, which is a must, but also develop the skills of our support staff and our veterinary technicians so we can function at our highest level. We have a large operating space where we have now space to have 9 surgical tables. And we really try to take a hard look at our setup to make sure we can maximize efficiency, that each workstation is set up so everybody has access to the tools that they need without having to walk all around the building. So efficiency is a big part of what we do. And I would say, although we are considered a super clinic, which we appreciate the recognition, it's always a work in progress, right? There's always an opportunity to analyze your procedures and your processes and your people. And, when you can implement change, it certainly can even boost productivity even more. So that's pretty much how we started. And we're really looking forward to some growth in the year ahead.
Feel free to jump in, whoever would like to share next.
Sure, I'll go. We're pretty similar to Jennifer, where we have sort of one big large space. We have 4 smaller, and then so like a lot of the setup is got to be pretty much the same as like Jennifer said, like so high efficiency, keeping things close to everybody. I'll say a difference that we do is we also have a transport system to kind of help those rural areas and things like that to bring them into us. So they're set up kind of like a bus stop. People meet us at, say, a farm supply store or something like that, or local grocery store. We load there, bring them in, bring them back the same day. That's really helped kind of, instead of adding even more clinics, it's been a way to make our existing clinics more efficient. And we also run with a mobile clinic as well, so we can kind of hit underserved areas, around the Dallas-Fort Worth area that don't. Instead of building a clinic there, we'll run those, and it also helps us as success with that. It has helped us find new areas where we do need a new clinic possible.
I'll go next. As in the intro, we talked about, we started off as a volunteer program, or a MASH unit. We'd go into a facility, take it over for the day, and then come out. So after a few years, that's when we started Fix Nation. We are specifically for cats only. Originally, it was 100% community cats, but since it's a service that we do for free, we have had to adjust that as funding comes and goes. So we have taken on some pet procedures. So obviously funding is the main key here. As far as our team, we have 2 veterinarians on every day with the ability, if they're required to be able to fix a minimum of 55 cats each, and not take all day. Generally, they're done by noon. I have an RVT and 6 technicians supporting those vets. And then we have a whole front end for reservations, admin, and marketing and so on. I agree with both of my other panelists. This is a work in progress, and we always learn something, even after all these years. I'm always learning something new, but I'm just so thankful that everyone's out here trying to make a difference.
Okay, that I guess comes to me then. So we accomplished our mission. We have 3 locations spread throughout the state of New Jersey. We have a clinic in North Jersey, a clinic in Central Jersey, and a clinic in South Jersey. We have about, at this point, 10 surgeons working with us. Not every surgeon is doing full-time work, but we have 10 surgeons that we work with. And with that surgeon capacity, we're able to get 23,000, again, more than 23,000 done a year. I agree with everyone about always trying to improve, always trying to do more, and always in the process of continuous self-improvement and improving efficiency, constantly monitoring, auditing systems. How can you improve? Completely agree with all of that stuff. We've done mobile in the past. We've done transportation in the past. We did those programs for years. For us, they were difficult to sustain, have been since suspended, but we've definitely done mobile and transportation in the past. But right now, it's just 3 brick and mortar clinics that we're working with.
Got it. I want to talk a little bit about the staffing side in terms of the number of surgeries that a veterinarian or a team can do per day is obviously greatly dependent on how you've set them up and what the support looks like. Karin, you mentioned that your surgeons are doing 50 plus surgeries a day. Is that correct?
Yes, that's an average. And obviously the speed of the veterinarian is important, but they're all high volume, high quality spay neuter vets. So it's not like when we had Catnippers, our volunteer program, I had 5 full service vets that took longer than what my 2 vets do. But yeah, that's what I.
And for folks listening, like that's a lot for, a vet to do in a day. And impressive. Could you talk about how many hours per day are they actually in surgery, and just expand a little bit on the support team that allows them to operate at that level?
Well, generally they start surgery at about 7:45. And they're usually done no later than 1 o'clock. A couple of my vets are super, super, super fast, and they're done by noon. So
And how many techs and assistants are kind of,
we have
keeping things moving?
well, the RVT, of course, this is all assembly line. So RVT does the induction, and then we have 6 technicians that support those vets in different positions, whether it's prepping the drugs and doing the logs, prepping the cats, surgery assistants, post-op, not only do we fix the cats, we also vaccinate them and flea treatment and all that for free. And then so that's the team in the back end for
Hmm.
vets.
Would anyone else like to share something that you figured out that works really well for kind of maximizing your vet's time and maximizing the amount of time they can be in surgeries?
I would also say similar to Karn, it's just having that support team.
Mm-hmm.
Are your vets doing exams? Is every vet doing exams before they cut or no?
Not on the community cats, obviously not until they're under,
Hmm.
but on the pet cats prior to surgery.
Gotcha. And on the operations side, just supporting that flow administratively is also super challenging. What software, like what maybe your main clinic software did you arrive at, and how did you know it was going to be the software that works best for you? We know that none of them are perfect. We've all got complaints about whatever we're using, but just kind of quickly, we'll go around and start with you, Kevin. What software are you using now, and kind of why?
Yeah, so we're using Covetrus's Impromed software. So that we started using that in 2014. It was, I think we were evaluating a number of systems. One of them was Clinic HQ, which was just getting started off the ground at the time. And my predecessor ultimately decided against Clinic HQ because it was so brand new, and she was concerned about, having long-term support services from them. And so ultimately went with Covetrus because they had been established, and it was in her mind guaranteed that there would be support services going forward in case there were any kind of issues with the software. That was ultimately for her the factor that led to choosing Impromed. But as you said, I'm sure no software is perfect. And, we've certainly run across our challenges with it. It's not designed for high volume spay neuter. It's designed more for full service private practice. So we've had to kind of, take, like, for instance, the scheduling module and somehow apply our own logic to how it works. So we've had to, like, kind of adapt it to our needs.
We use Clinic HQ, and we know it from the very beginning when Adam developed it, when Humane Alliance is the one that had him create it. Then Gina came into the mix. It's worked great for us. We're just spay neuter. We don't do anything else. It's Gina has been very responsive in any issues that we may have had. They have really, really grown and provided all kinds of services. So it's been perfect for us.
Our organization was using Impromed for many, many years, just like Kevin's team, but we recently switched to Pulse software. And I will say, we also felt that Impromed wasn't set up or fully integrated for high volume spay and neuter, was a little bit more effective for high volume veterinary clinic services. And so in part, that's the reason why we decided to look for new opportunities. And we've only had Pulse for a couple of months, so the team is still getting used to it. But one thing that I would recommend is for any software, if there is an ability for clients to be able to do online scheduling, that's something that can really take a burden away from your team. We've started that with our veterinary clinic services through Pulse and are going to work to integrate that on the spay and neuter side of things. But I think that that's really going to just help us boost our efficiencies and cut down on our call volume. Currently we're getting about 700 calls every single day to schedule these appointments. And we know that in today's day and age, everybody likes the internet and accessibility. So that's one thing that I would encourage you to consider if anybody is looking at new software systems.
And Clinic HQ does have that option. For us, we don't allow the general public to have access because one or two groups would just take them all, and then we couldn't help someone that only has 2 or 3 cats. But I know they do have that available.
And we've used what's called Complete Clinic software for years. I don't think anybody else probably knows what that is. It was very much kind of designed for us a little bit. We worked with a programmer. It looks kind of like Windows 97. It's not great, but it has done the job. And But because it had to support our transport program and wellness and things like that, so it was kind of difficult to find an off-the-shelf solution. But that one's kind of being pushed away. We did actually work with a developer. Thankfully, we've gotten some grant funding to actually start developing our own software, which we're about halfway through because, like Jennifer said, we wanted to build in the online portion. So we actually had to go with someone to build the online side that tied in. And then now we're going to work with that same developer just to rebuild our entire whole system so it supports all the facets.
Got it. Jennifer, I'll start with you on this question. Let's talk about the challenges that you're facing now, just maintaining this level of scale. Things come up all the time. What are some of the biggest operational challenges that any clinic might face when they're operating at this volume?
I think for us, we've always experienced challenges with just the sheer volume. Historically, it was not uncommon for us to have long wait times for clients to get appointments. And we know, that's not convenient for our community. We've been working really hard to hire more surgeons and support staff, but we all know the reality of the availability of new professionals in our field. So I think just encouraging our team to do our very best every single day and function at our highest level, realizing that we have a certain capacity for care. Quality always has to be at the top of all of our list. Our main focus is high quality medicine and also the quality of the client experience. We want them to be able to trust us, and we want them to be able to return and also promote our services within their own network. So just figuring out ways to balance the volume. It's really important to us. We don't want our team to walk away feeling deflated when we did over 100 procedures that day, but knowing that there's just so much more to accomplish. And so that's when we talk about different ways we can support our team and build culture. So, recognizing that there is a certain capacity level, do your best to work at that top mark. And celebrate the successes and then continue to build for the future.
I agree with Jennifer in the volume. The demand is huge. It's you go away. We do 4 10-hour days, and you go away and you come back in on Wednesday and there's 400 requests, and it's just constantly. And in order to accommodate them, you've got to be able to afford the veterinarians and the additional staff, and it all comes down to funding. If I don't have money, this is what I got to work with.
I would say veterinary staffing has been our biggest struggle. Just kind of keeping them there, and also keeping the numbers. Like Karn was saying, like she has vets doing 50 plus. It's getting really difficult for us to find vets who are willing to do that many in a day. So we actually ended up developing our own mentorship program to bring in private practice vets into high quality, high volume spay neuter, and training them who are already experienced vets to actually work at a higher, faster, safe, while being safe level, has helped us actually increase our numbers again with those students who are not really students, they're very high practicing veterinarians. But it has actually helped fill that gap of because we don't have veterinarians anymore that will do up to, we used to have one that would do 80 a day. It was awesome, but now we're looking at 35 to 45. Is kind of where we're usually landing. So that's been our biggest trouble, is trying to fill that.
Yeah, the vets, as we all know, is a difficult thing, and the competition. I don't know where the others are located, but the competition here in Los Angeles, there are some clinics that can pay a lot more money than we can, and I think we sort of have an advantage in the way that it's just cats, that they're not working on different sized dogs and all that, and they can generally get out by noon. But the competition of the veterinarians I mean, as you know, we don't have the vets, we're done.
I just wanted to share a little bit. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Jennifer.
I was just going to mention to follow up on what Karn was mentioning, because we do serve both dogs and cats. Our surgeon capacity is a little bit under that 50 mark because we do recognize that sometimes we're going to have some large breed dogs or maybe some pyometras that are worked into the mix. So our senior surgeons generally are doing a minimum of 40 surgeries. We do try to limit the number of dog procedures that they're doing per day, just so that doesn't lead to occupational injury and of course, physical fatigue. But we also recognize that there's different skill levels of our surgeons. And so we have senior surgeon levels, we have junior surgeon levels, and these are veterinarians that really want to get to that high volume level, and we invest in their training. And so we schedule around that. We know exactly how many surgeons we're going to have. We generally have 2 to 3 surgeons a day, and they're broken down into those different levels. And that really helps our team fine tune the scheduling. The first thing to maximize your capacity, you have to make sure you're bringing in the correct number of procedures per surgeon. So we do a lot of active management of the schedule for them. And that seems to work well. We also overbook. I'm not sure if we're going to talk about that, but just in high volume programs, we do see a lot of no-shows. Ours is actually one of the highest rates around. So that's something to take into consideration. There are some ways to offset the no-show appointments. So we generally will be overbooking a certain amount. So that way we can get the number of cases in the door that we need to function at that top level.
Yeah,
I agree with that. We overbook also. We assume a 20% no-show rate, and then we book to try to prevent that from happening. We do take what we call walk-in TNR appointments. So no appointment necessary. We can accept a certain number of no appointment TNR cases every day to help manage the no-show rates. Also, I'm sorry, Karen, go ahead.
No, I was just going to bring that the same thing. We overbook on purpose. If you're just talking community cats, we book 150 cats a day to get a success rate of 50 to 70%, unless it's some big time trapper like Jackie will. So, because you can count on her 30 cats coming in. But yeah, when the pets, people seem to show up with the pets, but we don't do that many pets. But I agree. You have to overbook. Otherwise, you're fully staffed and you're fixing 40 cats for the day.
Yeah.
So,
That's
I definitely agree with what everyone said about, challenges being related to finding surgeons. There's the challenge of, having, and we're experiencing this, outgrowing the buildings that we're in. And so when I hear Jennifer say she has a building with 9 surgical suites, I'm very envious and jealous of that. Because we've, at least 2 of our locations, we've outgrown them. But, aside from, the challenges of finding surgeons, aside from the challenges of the surgeon closed out sick this day, but they have a whole load scheduled. We have technicians calling out now, we're short a tech or 2. Aside from those challenges, at least from my organization's perspective or my perspective, I would say a big challenge is the administrative side. That's not, medical. Every organization has its idiosyncrasies. Every organization has its culture, its history, and things evolve the way they do. But certainly the administrative piece for us is very challenging. Making sure you have the processes, the procedures, the systems in place. And it's great. You can put them in place, but not only do you have to put them in place, but you need the oversight. You need the discipline to make sure those systems are being followed. And that can be challenging when you are a nonprofit that does not have access to tons of funding. And like us, we're mostly reliant on service fees. We don't have a robust fundraising operation, so we're relying on service fees. So that kind of constrains how much staff we can have, especially at the admin level. So this raises challenges. And one thing I would say in terms of becoming a super clinic and growing is, yes, you have to find surgeons, you have to have the space, you have to have the technicians, absolutely. But when you grow, you need to make sure that your administrative structure is growing at I would say a sustainable pace, that you have these things in place. So you're not getting, because you can I'll be honest, it's happened to my organization. You can very easily find yourself growing. Yeah, you're doing more and more surgeries, more and more stuff. And then you look behind, you're like, oh my God, these other pieces that aren't related to surgery have kind of is falling behind, or things are being done correctly. Now to go back and fix things, and that can take up a lot of your time, especially if you're in a leadership role in the organization. So I would say, staying on top of your admin stuff, your accounting, especially your finances, all that kind of stuff, like just making sure that things are being done properly. If you have staff that are, not giving people refunds at the end of the day and staying on your books, that's deferred revenue you got to track. If you want your balance sheet to be, as accurate as possible in real time, there's all these things that are very real challenges every single day. So I just want to bring up those points also.
Yeah. Yeah, Kevin, I'd like to talk about that because you're totally right. On behind every amazing veterinary team is are the operations folks who are making this possible and seamless and giving our clients the experience that we all believe they deserve. So, given that that's going to look different for everyone, and Jacob, I'd start with you. If you could just like obviously our org charts are not going to look the same, right? But if you could just highlight structurally, let's talk about the who. Talk about a few of the key roles in terms of their title and their role that you could not do this work without, and give our audience a sense of some of the roles that they would need to have in place to run a successful clinic.
I would say for us, because we do have the multiple locations that are kind of spread out, a really strong operations director and a strong financial person. Just somebody who can really keep track. I know a lot of people kind of just pushed it off to somebody, and that's a big one. But that operations director now, since we've grown where we are, I mean, we actually have someone between her, so we now have a regional manager that is over the other manager below that, just to kind of keep that culture going and things like that. So you don't. That's the tough part. As we start pushing these people harder, we want to make sure that we keep a good culture and things like that to make sure they're happy there and reduce turnover. So we want to have that overlap, and but then you do run a thing like Kevin was saying, it's paying for it, having the admin there. So but that's where, of course, we also use service fees and things as well. So that's where we kind of help that with admin costs and things like that. But yeah, I would just say definitely, yeah, interview strongly and well, and keep that operations director is a very, very key role in making sure that they're supporting their staff and building that structure.
Yeah, I mean, we have, so we have location managers that are 3 locations, and I would agree. You need the C-suite, if you want to call a CEO or co-executive director or whatever, but a CEO, a CFO, and a COO, right? And you need to have strong people in every position. Goes without saying. Your location managers need to be able to do their job, but you need an operations director who can overlook and provide oversight to the location manager. You can't just trust that your location manager is doing everything correctly or doing everything they're supposed to do. You need someone who can oversee them, right? And I certainly know for our organization, the CEO leadership, the CEO person needs to have some fluency in finances, fluency in operations, right? Because you need to make sure that someone needs to know that the person in charge of your finances is doing what they're supposed to be doing and doing it correctly, right? So I believe also it needs to be at the CEO level, it needs to be fluency in everything. Yeah, but definitely CEO, CFO, COO, location managers, and definitely a medical director. Highly recommend a medical director. I don't know that's necessarily a good idea to have to rule by committee on these things. I mean, if that works, if someone does it and it works for them, hey, by all means. But I think it's beneficial to have a medical director as well.
Yeah, maybe if you all could speak to that part too when you're talking about operations, because Kevin, to your point, you you do need a distinct medical hierarchy. You need a decision maker who makes the call and can support the rest of the team. Um, so go to you, Karn, next.
Well, you have the medical director that we have to have one anyway for managing or protocols and so on. I do a lot of these things myself, whether it's billing or payroll, all the HR, the manual, the fundraising. My late husband used to do that, but then it came on me. I do have a board member that helps with social media and our marketing. I do have an outside accounting firm. It's very important to me from day one that we have an outside firm to where we're also having an annual audit by an outside organization. But a lot of these things I sort of do myself within. And it's been difficult. I'll have to say the HR part is the tough part. It's like, if I could just fix all these cats myself and not have to worry about, I think either Kevin or Jacob were pointing out that people not showing up, calling out. I mean, it just, you wake up in the morning, first thing you've got 2 people calling out, and you know that you're really going to need them and you're scrambling. So I've just sort of been doing this by myself with help with an accountant and so on, but that's sort of my thing. And of course, I have a person who does reservations, and the receptionist at front end, and how important that is in meeting the clients, because they're the first contact, the appointment people, the reservation people, the reception, and so on. That's sort of my world. I wish I had all these help.
I mean, Karin, honestly, you raise a very, a great point, because, it's one thing to hear us at this, panel talking about this stuff, but, it's not always as, like when I say, oh, you need CFO, CEO, blah, blah, blah. But there are a lot of times, you might lose your CFO, and then, okay, who's going to do payroll now? They might give you 2 weeks notice, or, who's going to do payroll now? Who's going to look at the books until we find someone? So yeah, if I'm being honest, I've done literally probably 200 payrolls while I've been at the organization, right? Not even joking. I've worked on the books, done the books, tracking deferred revenue, tracking and releasing grant funds, all that kind of stuff, right? So there are times, and that's what I was saying before, like fluency is very important as a CEO or executive director, because there may be times you have to step in and fill these roles, right? To your point, HR is a very time consuming thing, and it drains you big time, but it's very important. We have HR, but we also have outside legal counsel we consult, because if there's situations that are not cut and dry, you probably have to refer to legal counsel about it, because there might be case law and things of that nature that might dictate how you approach a certain situation with a certain employee. So yeah, HR is very important, as you said, but it's also very yeah.
Also, that's a good point of board formation as well. So that's something we try and make sure we have as an attorney on our board, which does come in handy for those things. Like
Yeah,
Kevin said.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I was very lucky. Mark was an attorney.
Oh,
So we got it everything set up, the employee manual, all that stuff, but I sure miss him on other things that have happened, that's for sure.
I will say something else you brought up too, Karin. You're talking about like kind of social media and marketing and things like that. I didn't mention that earlier, but as our volume has grown to the level it has, that's something we've definitely had to do. Is we've had to do paid marketing to bring in the volume. I don't know about the rest of you. That's something we've definitely had to do to kind of get the results to really bring the numbers in for us. We had to have, of course, that's where when I came in originally as the marketing communications director, was a kind of start. We had, at the time, we had one clinic in a mobile, and we were doing about 12,000 surgeries, but then they were really kind of plateaued. And so as we were growing, we just had to really kind of develop a marketing, both organic to bring in and then also paid as well, to really kind of hit the numbers we are now.
It's great. Jennifer, you want to comment on the operations side for your team?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, I agree. Those are certainly all critical roles, but for us as well, having a chief medical officer to oversee the quality of medicine is extremely important. And maybe even if you're not at that level yet, just identifying somebody as a lead veterinarian or surgeon who can really be a decision maker, especially in the trenches when we need to make some active decisions or problem solving. So our chief medical officer, especially, when you are getting to a 20,000 or greater volume, there are going to be some things that come up, whether it be complications, patient deaths, difficult clients. So having that support system, I think, is pretty pretty essential. It also really helps bring the veterinarians together. So the veterinarians want to feel supported in the type of medicine, and they want somebody that can understand the decisions that they may be making, in the best interest of the patient. So I think that has really helped us build and retain our surgeons, because we do have that level of support. And even, as we have evolved, so now our chief medical officer does have some lead surgeons and lead veterinarians. So there's constant leadership presence on the floor. We know we can't be everywhere all at once, but as long as there's somebody who has some sort of leadership skills and ability to coach and guide the team and help with the flow, I think that can make a big difference.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And you mentioned the support side. I've been surprised at how much team support and really the leadership must have exceptional emotional intelligence. Like you could spend 70-80% of your day just supporting team members with whatever they need. Could be something at work, could be something outside of work, but you want them to come in happy and energized. You want them to refer their friends. I'm sure some folks are watching and saying, I would love to do more surgeries. I need more vets to do that. So we've talked a little bit about the support system that you would put in place so that you can be a workplace of choice for those vets. Any other lessons that any of you have learned around recruiting specifically on the medical side? We know it's competitive. We know that we need to have all of our the basics of our package in place, but what do you think it is about your organization that has allowed you to, you've already grown to a level that is difficult to get to. What do you think has been special about your mix to bring on the medical staff that you're looking to attract?
With us, it's been really a lot of using our own vets to be ambassadors. The ones that really do the volume and are happy about their roles, like really encourage them to speak with other veterinarians and things like that, because veterinarians have been more likely to respond to veterinarians. And it goes back to kind of the mentorship program I mentioned earlier. So we had one of our longest term vets really kind of helped develop that program. So I think using those, and I think the more you do that, I think it more makes them feel part of the organization. So that's really worked well for us to fill those gaps when we don't have, say, a full-time vet somewhere, and we can kind of bring in other vets on a contract term. They've really helped bring those in for us.
Yeah, and I appreciate you mentioning that. As you all are talking, if you could maybe also refer to, are you using per diems at all right now to kind of fill in the gaps, staffing wise? Or are everyone's full time?
100%. We have one clinic currently now that is 100% per diem. Just because we have certain areas that we've had a much harder time finding veterinarians for. We have others that it's easy. We'll have a full-time vet, no problem. Of course, we'll use per diems to fill any, vacation gaps, things like that. But yeah, currently our it's a brand new facility too, but it's using 100% contract vet. It's working well, but it's 100% contract.
Yeah, so so for a long time we sustained ourselves on full-time surgeons, but as those surgeons have gotten closer to retirement and have maybe scaled back on their schedule somewhat, we've had to move more to part-time veterinarians. They're part-time employees, so they're not contractors, not 1099s. They're actual employees. But yeah, it's, especially the newer veterinarians that we've hired are recent grads who have come to us because they want to, sharpen their surgical skills. So to Jacob's point, kind of a mentorship program. We'll invest the time in you. We'll develop your surgical skills, but it has to be in exchange for you agreeing to take on shifts with us. So that's been the way we've been getting new surgeons into our fold. It's pretty much investing in them and them taking on shifts for us. That's yeah. But it seems like again, we went from most pretty much full time with all our surgeons to now it's like less becoming less full time and more towards people with jobs at ER or jobs at private practice who are able to give us a shift or two a week. That's what it's become for us at this point. But I
Fred?
think also, I think also, giving, our full-time surgeons a 4-day work week, right? And they have 3 days off, usually 3-day weekends off. That helps also. And a lot of our veterinarians so we use a productivity-based compensation system where it's a point system. They're not paid salary, so they can control how much money they make by how much surgery they take on. So I think for a lot of the vets that work with us, they find that very attractive.
Yeah, we do the same. We do a 4-day week, most of our clinics, and we also do a minimum surgery. And then if they go, they're paid a certain amount above those surgeries if they do those in a particular day.
Our surgeons are also working 4-day work weeks. Most of them are full-time and salaried, but anytime we can work with per diem surgeons, we'll always take advantage of that opportunity. And I think the mentorship aspect is really important too. We have the benefit because we do also focus on full service veterinary care, where veterinarians can rotate through the different departments, and that really helps them feel like they have a little bit more of a balanced and flexible schedule. And I think that's really important and something that veterinarians or surgeons would be looking for in an employment offer, is just that flexibility and balance.
And ours are all independent contractors. We do a flat rate. It's a 4-day week, but we only have one vet that's 4 days. But I've learned over all these years that after a while, they may, their hands start bothering them or whatever issues, or they're going to move or so on. So it's sort of like, okay, this one vet can do 3 days this month and this other vet can do, so it's piecemealed, which is always very challenging on scheduling. But it's a flat rate on our surgeons.
Yeah. Yeah, it is doable, but I guess at a macro level, it's concerning, I guess, a little bit. It feels like there's potential for much more instability if we're all working on, part-time, per diem, contract. I know we can make it work on a day-to-day basis, but what we all want is consistency and sustainability. And I'd love for us as a sector to figure out a way to find a balance with the team, so that they can sign on for a set schedule and we can plan ahead and book on that schedule. Um, so the big question, if you had to do this over again, I know you're like, oh, please, no. If you had to do all this all over again, what are some things that you would do differently? And we'll kind of translate this to advice for our audience as they are maybe embarking on a similar journey.
Something that just popped in my head is we have recently hired a veterinary social worker that supports all of the employees throughout the organization. And, we can't do this work without our team and the talent of our team. And so when we hired this veterinary social worker, we've really seen a boost in the team culture. We're seeing improved retention. It was a big stretch because it is a new position for the organization, and we weren't sure the return that we were going to realize from it. But I would say if I had to do things differently, and especially with the intention to grow and develop programs and service delivery, I would consider either having a veterinary social worker on board or some sort of commitment to employee wellness programs.
I would say, I think it was progressing along very nicely as the way Mark and I wanted it to. And unfortunately, he got diagnosed with ALS and then ended up passing away. And I think on a personal level for me, I think it would have been, if I wasn't just dealing with just running the clinic and everything I had to do, I think if I could have taken more time and getting support from myself, just dealing with the stress and the loss and the So I think if I had the mind, I would do that next time, because it was really, really tough when you've been with someone for 42 years. And he's the one that introduced me to cats. And I fell in love with him and the cat. So I think on a personal level that I would have done differently.
I think too, like kind of what Jennifer was saying, honestly, like in the beginning, I think because taking on things on few people take on a whole lot. So I think kind of focusing on structure and taking care of yourself. I think having the HR aspect thing like that. I think we're in a really good shape now, but I think early on, and it's like those growing pains are really tough to kind of build those new positions and things like that. But I would say when you are able to, I would say definitely try and spread those loads the best you can, just for a better community kind of culture in the workplace.
Yeah, I think get in front of it, because it's going to come.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
I guess for me, I would say, as Jacob alluded to, there's a lot of growing pains going from doing, say, 5,000 surgeries a year to doing, 15, 20,000. It's a lot of growing pains. And, running these kinds of organizations is, I think at all levels, at least in my organization, everything's fast paced. There's more work than there are people to do it. Everyone's doing multiple jobs. No one's doing the job of just one person, right? But I think it's extremely important to the extent you can, to plan these things out and try to account for all the different what if situations and how you can't account for everything, but to the extent possible, plan everything out. If you're bringing new software on board and your new software is not going to be your accounting software, let's say you have QuickBooks or something like that, and you have your veterinary software, take the time to find out how these two things are going to work together. Take the time to do mock intakes and mock discharges, mock invoicing, all this kind of stuff, so how your system works. Don't be one of those clinics that gets a new software and just says, "Yeah, we're just going to throw everyone into it and see how." No, just plan everything out, so because you will avoid lots of headaches down the road. So I would just, again, planning.
And we're in that process right now. So I'll add one more thing to Kevin, and involve your team in that planning. Don't wait till it breaks
Yes.
later. Involve them, do those real time mock-ups and things like that. When you, especially if you're looking for new software or building it like we are, yeah, super important. And it just makes your team feel more part of the growth. So makes them feel like they're
Absolutely.
different for the organization.
And one thing I would say to mention real quick on the accounting side of things, if you're going to be kind of like our organization is, where you're pretty much just service fee revenue, right? And you're doing tens and tens of thousands, if not six-figure transactions a year, right? If you're relying on a bookkeeper or some kind of outside firm, it might not work for you. If you're 100% grant funded, you're not charging anyone anything, that might be fine, but you're probably going to need accounting staff of your own at some point. You won't be able to rely on part-time bookkeepers or outside staff to handle this kind of stuff. So I definitely, that's one thing I have to take into consideration, also that possible need down the road.
Yeah, you can. I think when you get started, you succeed because you can do 20 things, or you have a team member who's just an amazing star and they're doing 20 jobs. But as you're all mentioning, how can we flag that early before it's a problem? Whether they burn out, whether they leave, whether, they just want to enjoy their lives. How do we proactively look around our team and see who's carrying too much, who's a top performer, but they're really doing three jobs and they actually need you to proactively intervene and make that three jobs? And we didn't talk a lot about fundraising here because we just have an hour and there's a lot to cover. But one of the themes that's clear is that we need the resources and the funds in the bank to invest ahead of time on our team. And there's not always going to be a contract for that. There's not always going to be a grant for that. It's definitely not going to be a restricted funding situation, but I think it's safe to say we all need enough cash in the bank to be able to invest in those roles if we're serious about growth, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And and part of the, at least in my organization, I certainly see the staff members who have too much on their plates, right? It's not like it's hidden from us, but those of us who can do anything about it or are seeing it, we too have no bandwidth. And so when you have no bandwidth yourself, you're not necessarily in a position to take the load off of people because you as a person cannot take on any more work. And so that is a situation you can easily find yourself in. But to extricate yourself from that situation is not as easy, especially when, to your point, Will, there's not funding you can rely on. And I mean, yeah, if you want to raise service fees, you might be able to get more funding, right? But then how does that affect your mission, right? Because then you're pricing people out of your services. And I know for us, we are, kind of considered the last resort. If you can't go to PFA, they're not going anywhere, right? And every time we raise our fees, we're pricing people out of our mission. So these are all very difficult things to wrestle with, and there's no necessarily easy answers to how to solve it.
Yeah, for sure. I'd like to close with if anyone would like to share any anecdotes around, we've talked about veterinarians a lot, but if anyone would like to share a success story or an anecdote around how you were able to compensate, reward, elevate some of the other critical team members, could be a tech, could be an assistant, someone who's really stepped up at your team and you were able to compensate them and keep them because really, for the surgeon to be happy and functioning at the level they need, these techs and assistants and the rest of the team are so critical. So we didn't get a chance to spend a ton of time on individual roles, but anything come to mind for you all about how you're able to compensate and recognize and celebrate those folks?
I'll go real quick. I think one of the things that we do at our organization is, we try not to just have compassion for the animals that we're helping, but also the people that are working for us. And so we extend a lot of compassion to our employees. We take a very understanding approach that life happens and things happen. And, we've in the recent years, we've had several employees get diagnosed with cancer, and we've gone out of our way to be there. And the first response is, what do you need from us? What can we do to help you? How can we be there for you? So we try to be very understanding of employees, and yes, sometimes some employees may take advantage of that understanding, but we try to be extremely understanding of employees and recognize life happens and work with them. And I think that's gone a long way to kind of make our retention rate as high as it is. And I think the employees really appreciate that, and it's one of the reasons why they have job satisfaction. So being a very understanding employer is, I think, has been beneficial for us and for the
Great.
employees.
Great. We got time for one or two other quick examples before we wrap.
I would just mention there's a lot of different ways that don't necessarily overburden you from a cost standpoint, but just making sure that you are recognizing staff anniversaries, especially if it's a big one. We recently now have our board of directors sending thank you notes to anybody that has worked for the organization for a year or 3 years. And we do a care basket once they've reached a certain length of employment. And, it might sound a little silly, but we implemented Employees of the Month, and we celebrate that across the locations. Everybody or the Employee of the Month gets a special parking spot, which is a big deal for us because parking is tight in Jacksonville. And, birthdays, monthly, we know everybody that has a birthday within that month, and we do something little. We're big on food rewards too. So any opportunity to bring in a little bit of snacks or a team lunch really goes a long way.
I would say, we definitely celebrate birthdays and so on. But every once in a while, I'll surprise and say, guess what? We're going to take the day off and you're going to get paid for it. That is a financial one, but every once in a while, when I'm able to afford it, I'll go, okay.
Yeah, because it's a challenging role, and not just physically, right? Emotionally, mentally, psychologically. I loved hearing from all of you how thoughtful you are about supporting your team. That's one of the biggest themes that's I'm coming away with is, yeah, putting the numbers on the board is impressive, but really just supporting the people who show up every day to make that possible is the biggest ingredient. And that applies at all scale, right? Whether you're doing a few thousand surgeries, whether this is your first team, a takeaway for our audience is start building those systems now. Start making sure you have a way to track birthdays. Start making sure you are already celebrating employees. If you have 2 employees, start it now. So that if you get to this level, you already have the infrastructure in place to have a really rewarded and engaged team. So thank you all for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
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 Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you all. Thank you so much for sharing all of this awesome insights and information and your anecdotes. And thank you so much, Will, for handling this conversation. And I know that there are a lot of questions out there that I saw coming in. And so if you do want to get in touch with any of our speakers, if you don't have their contact information, I don't know if we have that listed somewhere, but if you get in touch with me, I'll definitely be able to put you in touch with them. So I thank you all again. We are going on a quick break now. We have lunch, and so it's 12:30 Eastern time. And so we have about a 30-minute lunch built into our schedule here. And so we will go on a short break for that. I invite you all to come back in 30 minutes or at 1 p.m. Eastern time. We are going to be hearing from the one and only Julie Jacobson, our state leader for Tennessee, leader of Spay, Tennessee. She's going to talk to us all about the rural reality and how to start a spay neuter program in your state. And so do come back, fuel up for lunch, come back, and we will be hearing from Julie. So thank you again to our amazing panel. Thank you to all of you out there, and I can't wait to see you in about a half hour.